Welcome back, Braves country. This is Bloopers Brigade, our second episode. I hope you enjoyed the first one. I am back with my co-host, Jake Gordon. I myself am Chaser. We have a ton of stuff to talk about, and this will be our second time talking about it because last time we did it, it didn't record. But that's good news because we got to watch Ynoa last night, and he went 5.1 innings. On the podcast yesterday, I asked you, Jake, what would have been a good start? What would have been a good start in his 3 months return back to the major leagues? And we both kind of just said, as long as he goes out there and looks like the same Huascar Ynoa, ignore the stats, but the stats just turned out to be great. And he looked about as good as he possibly could have in his first time back in 3 months.
Yeah, I think I said 6 innings pitched, like 2 earned runs, I would be happy with. So I'm definitely happy with 5.1 a shutout. I'd actually obviously take that over that. So
yeah,
I liked what I saw.
4 base runners. Guy strikes out 4. He had 2 hits allowed, or 1 hit allowed going into the 5th inning. He gave up 2 when they brought in Matzik. They only let him go 80 pitches, but I don't think it was like, they were worried about him giving up a run or anything. I think that was just the cutoff limit. Once he hit 80 pitches, they were pulling him regardless. I think he probably would have gotten out of that inning without any damage, but Matzik comes in. And the bullpen was electric like it has been. Absolutely perfect. Can't complain about Will Smith last night. He goes out there and shuts the door. Jackson, 3 up, 3 down. Matzik, Martin. I don't think maybe there was 1 hit allowed among all of them, or maybe it was just a walk. But they completely shut down a somewhat wimpy Marlins lineup. And they now sit 2.5 games in first place. 4 games ahead of the Mets. Shout out to that guy who said we had to win every division, every game to win the division. The Mets are now under 400, and they are currently losing to the Giants or tied. I think they're in an afternoon game. It might be 1-0 to the Giants, but if they lose that, they will be about 5 games back of the Braves in a matter of just a couple of weeks, which is a pretty amazing collapse.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets, man, they're just hilarious. Their owner gets on Twitter today, and he's like, I don't understand how these guys just can't hit or something like that. He's like statistically awful or something. Like, that's your owner saying that. That's really bad. Imagine if Arthur Blank got on Twitter and was like, why can't any of our running backs get past the line of scrimmage? Like, that's so insulting to your players.
I thought it was funny, like when he did it as kind of the jokes. Like, I think we talked about this in the last episode. We were talking about Cohen. I thought it was funny when he was saying it as like a joke, but coming out and saying something serious like that, that's got to be a turnoff to free agents. And I think a lot of people were excited. I mean, remember Stroman? He was super excited about signing that qualifying offer with the Mets. And he said that like that was an owner, the type of owner and management he wanted to play for and stuff like that. I think that's how a lot of players felt when the Mets were out there trying to hand out big money and really go for broke. And then Cohen starts doing stuff like this, and now you're going to have a lot of tension between that ownership and the players. And I think that's a long-lasting issue with the Mets. And it's just hilarious because the Mets just seem to do something Mets every year. They just screw themselves up, whether it's injuries. I mean, the Mets are going to Met. I mean, we've said that on the Sports Talk ATL podcast when we had it, and the Mets are going to Met. They're going to do something, and I just kept saying that was what was going to happen. And they completely collapsed. Pete Alonso keeps saying things like, I think at the end of the year, like things are going to look a lot better, blah, blah. No, they're not. They're going to look a lot worse. You're going to finish the year under 500 in 3rd place. Hell, I think the Marlins or Nationals might catch up to you. You're not a good team all around. You're poorly built. You have terrible contracts, and now your owner doesn't shut up. I mean, this is the most Mets year of all, and they really outdo themselves every year. It's truly amazing.
I think it's just so funny. Like, they had their chance. Like, the Braves were just helpless for the first 5 months of the season.
100 games.
Yeah, they had their chance. They had 100 games. If they could have gone, 70 and 30 is a tall task, 65 and 45. No, they hung around 500 the whole year, and now Daddy's home, and it's over for them. I mean, they're done.
The Braves aren't going to screw this up.
That guy, Trent from, I think he's with Tomahawk Take, but he tweeted something about Marcus Stroman. He goes, get out of New York and go somewhere you'll be appreciated. And Stroman liked it.
Yeah, and, I saw that.
And then we had our article back in the day where we were like, Braves were interested in Marcus Stroman. We didn't tag him or anything, and he still liked it. Like, so.
I mean, I think Stroman's always kind of been that guy who's not afraid to wear his feelings on the sleeve. That's kind of who he is as a person. So I take some weight into that. I think the comments that Cohen made was it, I guess, last night or after they lost. That's serious. Like, that's not something the players are going to appreciate, and that's going to affect them in free agency. And they already are affected enough by bad contracts like Lindor, Robinson, Cano. So they already have a bunch of awful contracts on the payroll. So the Mets are in some serious trouble
If I'm
trying to
Javi
keep this
Baez,
together.
I'm not signing back at the end of the year. Like
No,
that's
and Javi Baez, he's on the IL. I mean, talk
yeah.
about that just hasn't worked out. Nothing for the Mets has worked out, and that's Mets are going to Met. But let's talk about the Braves because that's really
Let's talk about an
who's
actual
been.
baseball team. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the reason why the Braves are in first place is because of themselves, not because of another team collapsing. They've been playing fantastic baseball, and there's a line that Jared Carabas always uses, and it's this line of fucks talking about this
Would you
team.
just call him Jared? It's Jared Carabas, bro.
Carabas, whatever. I mean, like whatever. That doesn't matter. But Jared Carabas. But this lineup fucks, and even without Acuna, this lineup still fucks. And I think it's because you look at the places where this lineup was weak last year, and as good as it was weak in some areas. Austin Riley has gone from a liability, a negative WAR player, to an MVP candidate, which is something we'll talk about later. Adam Duvall continues to be a 40 home run guy. You bring in Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, those guys to replace an Ender and Ciarte. I mean, that's no longer. So obviously you lose Acuna, but they've made up so much offense in other areas that wasn't here last year. So I think this lineup is almost, I'm not going to say as good as last year, but I definitely think it can hold a candle. And that's why you're seeing the success, especially with such a good rotation and a bullpen that's really started to pitch well too.
Yeah, like I said, obviously having Ronald back would be so incredible. But you talk about even having like Mike Soroka back, that is just so deep, such a deep starting rotation if he is who we know he can be. But, there's no time to sit there and, ponder what ifs and, oh, if only, you still got to play the games on the schedule. And the Braves are they're just winning right now. That's really the only thing to it.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule's obviously helped us out a bit over the last couple of weeks, but they're beating everyone. I mean,
they're winning the games.
Yeah,
they took two from the Reds, who were a good team, and then they swept the Nationals.
And they blew one. The last two games that they've lost were blown ninth inning leads to the Nationals and the Reds.
Yeah,
I mean, they could easily be on like a 14-game winning streak, I think it is.
Yeah.
They could very easily be on a 14-game winning streak, and it's a testament to how well they're playing. I think over their last 13 games or 14 games, they're averaging something along the lines of like a ridiculous, like almost like 10 runs a game. It's something silly. Which is kind of like some stretches we saw last year. So this offense has really put it all together. The moves by Anthopoulos, you have to give him A+ across the board, really helped this team get back into it. And the rotation, as I've said, this is a rotation that can carry a team. And now you just add a little bit of offense and you see how good this team can be. As long as that bullpen can hold up, I mean, This team is really scary. And you look at like across the board, I mean, right now you have the Giants and the Brewers and the Braves as the three division leaders. I think you could argue that the Braves might be the best team out of all three of those teams.
Yeah, and you talk about we talked about this last time when I was like the Braves. I was like they're maddening because they don't play a complete game. Like somebody in some facet doesn't show up. We saw last night the offense got some runs. Huascar Ynoa was really good as a starter, and then Tyler Matzik comes in a bases loaded jam and gets him out of it. Like everybody is coming together, and that's why they're winning these games.
Yeah, I mean, I always said this bullpen had a chance to turn things around. They weren't that far away, and I think just adding Richard Rodriguez helped so much. Will Smith, Chris Martin, Luke Jackson. If we throw in like a Tuki Dusan or whoever ends up going to the bullpen when Anderson comes back, I mean, this is actually a pretty good – Tyler Matzik, obviously, too. Yeah. That's actually a pretty good group, especially with the way this rotation can pitch on any given night. They can go 6 deep, 7 deep, like clockwork. So their pitching staff is really, really underrated. And this offense, like you said, it's really coming together in all three phases. And I know people are kind of talking about schedule. I don't think it's going to matter when we go and play Los Angeles and San Francisco out west in a couple of weeks. I think they're going to compete in those games. They might not win 2 out of 3. They might lose both of those series, but I can almost guarantee you they're going to go out there and I'm going to go out on a limb and say they'll go at least 3-3. I think they play 6 games. It might be 7, but I'd say they go at least 3-3, 4-3 over that stretch. They're not going to sweep both of them like they have been, but they're playing too good a baseball to go out there and, get swept like the Phillies and the Mets have against these better teams.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like I said, all the Braves really, all they really have to do is just, I know it sounds so simple, but they just got to keep doing what they're doing. There's no need to make any type of sweeping changes. Like I know everybody's like, I don't want Will Smith to be the closer. I don't want Ozzie hitting leadoff. Look, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I say just kind of keep things as is at the moment. And when they come back down to earth, which probably will happen at some point, then you can start talking about making a couple tweaks. But until then, like, I'm not going to sit here and nitpick about it. They're winning games.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the tweaks that they're inevitably going to have to decide on because of players coming back in a little bit. But let's first talk about guys that have really are the reason for this push over the last couple months. We mentioned Austin Riley, and how are people not starting to view him as an MVP candidate? I realize he shouldn't be the front runner, but he's got to be in most people's at least top 5 right now.
Well, if they do, it's because of me, because I wrote the article. I'm going to pioneer that take that Austin Riley is an MVP candidate. But I mean, like, it's so stupid because people will straight up look you in the eyes and be like, "Oh, his defense, he has the worst defensive analytics," and and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I think Fernando Tatis Jr. should win it." Like,
yeah,
that's you're just wasting your breath, man. But yeah, I think Austin Riley is totally in the conversation. I think he might even be ahead of Freddie, and I think Freddie's in the conversation. So
I would put Austin Riley there simply because he's been doing it for like such a long stretch. Like, he started off slow. I think the first maybe 5 weeks,
I think it was 15 games. I think it was
maybe it might have been 2 weeks where he was hitting like 160. But if you go look from like that point on, I mean, the guy's hitting over 300 with a 930-40 OPS, and he's been doing it all season. Consistent power. I mean, it's just really impressive. And this guy's a bona fide star in the Braves lineup. I'm not afraid to say that. We always said he had star power. He has turned into a star. I don't think this is going away anytime soon. And I think I don't know how many games are left, 40 maybe, 40, a little over 40 or something like that. I mean, if he goes on a tear, like, we know Austin Riley can go on these tears where it's just unbelievable.
He's on one right now. Like, it's so crazy. We think he can even elevate it even more.
Yeah, if he goes on one of those Austin Riley tears for the final 6 weeks, he could easily win the MVP. He definitely will be up in the conversation, and I think you could be talking about a top 3, top 2, and who knows? It depends how hot he gets, a top 1. So I know it's definitely a long shot, but I don't know how people aren't at least giving him some respect in that conversation.
When I looked, he didn't even have odds. Like, he
I know.
wasn't even on the board. That was crazy to me.
I saw the odds today, and Freddie Freeman was 17-1, and it only showed the top 5. And the last one was 50-1. I think that was Castellanos was 50-1. Dude, there's no, like, Riley should be at the very least right there with Freddie, because whoever has a better end of the season, if you're going to give it to the Braves, the guy who flipped this season around for the Braves, it's just been as much Austin Riley as Freddie Freeman. And so if you're going to like talk about those two guys, whoever has the better last 6 weeks, I think they're like pretty much dead tied right now. But whoever has the better last 6 weeks, that's who I would give it to.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Riley is you talk about his tears and how he gets hot. Like, we've seen that before, but I kind of think this is actually just who he is. Like, he's been doing it for a long time. It's not just, oh, Austin Riley went off for 2 straight weeks and hit 20 home runs and then, struck out his next 40 at bats. Like, he's actually consistent with it. And if he can stay that consistent with it, like he said, he's a superstar.
Yeah, I'm shocked, to be honest. I mean, I always thought I was always pro Riley. I'm ready to be patient with these guys. I was pro Riley, but I didn't ever think he'd be like a 300 hitter. I didn't think that was ever going to be something. Yeah. I thought he was probably going to be a 250, 260 guy. But I thought he could hit 40 to 50 home runs, which is fine, especially in today's game. But what he's showing us right now is he's so much more advanced as a hitter than I think anyone really gave him credit for. I mean, that home run he hit off of what's the dude, Bender, who has nasty stuff for the Marlins. The guy has absolutely wicked stuff. It was like an 0-2 pitch. He had literally just whipped on a slider 6 feet out of the zone. And then he gets a slider very similar, but closer to the zone. And he's able to step out on 1 foot and hit it the other way for a home run. I mean, that's a tough pitch to hit. And I mean, that was an unbelievable piece of hitting. And that's just an example. That's just something you were never seeing from him, except for that first, when he was originally called up. But I mean, he just turned into a fantastic all-around hitter, not just a power guy. I mean, he's got it all. And as long as his glove continues to improve, I mean, this guy is going to be a perennial all-star and MVP candidate in the middle of the Braves lineup for years to come.
We talked about it with Ronald, too. Like, he became a little more selective. And then, now you're in a 2-0 count, and this guy has to throw you something to hit. And you have the God-given ability that when you get a pitch to hit, you're going to hit it 450 feet. And we're just seeing it come together and him do it consistently.
Yeah, and you can look for pitches, and you can take pitches that you're not comfortable swinging at. Yeah, I mean, getting up in the count, like you'll always hear it said a million times. This is like a Chip Carey thing of me to say, but it always feels like he's down 0-2, like when a guy's slumping, and that's really how it goes. because getting ahead in the count is so critical, especially with the way pitchers can throw basically anything at you these days. So you really need to be up in the counts to be great. But I mean, yeah, Riley has just been unbelievable. And we mentioned this on the podcast we recorded yesterday. I know I'm kind of referring this, but if you had an all-star team of infielders, or an all-star team at the end of the year, I think the Braves get all, like, maybe not all 4 spots because you have like Tatis and some other guys, but I mean, they're all 4 guys would make the all-star team.
Dansby, there's like a bench, like not just the starters. Like,
yeah, it's not just the starters.
All 4 Braves are there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible what those 4 guys have been able to do. I got some stats here on Swanson. Over the last 94 games, he has just over an 870 OPS with 22 bombs, and he's also playing the hardest defensive position in baseball. Those aren't just all-star numbers. Like, those are, I mean, a lot of guys, if you're playing shortstop and you have a 900 OPS, are getting MVP consideration. And this guy's a guy who could hit 35, 40 bombs in a year if he's on this pace. That's what that pace is.
All 4 infielders for the Braves are going to finish the year with over 30 home runs, and that probably does not happen very often.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's funny because the Padres, when they traded for Frazier, were talking about how all 4 of their guys were all-stars. But I'm looking at the Braves, and I'm like, those are the 4 guys that I want. I mean, because I just think Austin Riley, I would take Riley over Machado. He's obviously not making that kind of money, but I would. Dansby, you're obviously going to take Tatis, but Ozzie and Freddie are no-brainers at their respective positions. So that's the best infield in baseball. I don't think there's any questions of that, and it just kind of sucks you don't have Ronald, because that would just be an unbelievable top 6 guys you have in your lineup.
Yeah, Travis d'Arnaud's looked pretty good since he's gotten back. I mean, it's just
we haven't even talked about him. I mean, once he starts get going, I mean, he's hitting 7th. Like, that's just how deep this lineup is now. It's really just, God, it feels good, because I feel like even the most optimistic Braves fans, there was a little while where I was a little worried. I was never really ready to throw in the towel, but I was definitely starting to wonder, hey, if we don't take advantage of this, I don't know how we're going to win this division. It's kind of happened a lot quicker than I thought, but that's baseball, and that's why you always have to tell people, relax. These things I know 6 games feels like a lot, but look, the Mets have, lost 10 games on the Braves in 2.5 weeks. So, I mean, things can flip so quickly. It's kind of a hot and cold game. It's almost like a game of runs, but over games. That's what baseball is. It's a game of runs, like back and forth, like basketball is, but it's over, 2-week periods, 3-week periods. So another guy, and then I want to talk real quick about Swanson. Again, that guy needs an extension. He is everything the Braves are, that like this organization represents. That guy needs an extension. I don't want to hear it. He deserved it. He's earned it. Since 2019, he has been one of the best shortstops in baseball. Let me give you a couple numbers. Before he got injured in 2019, which I did before the All-Star break, he was hitting 270 with 17 bombs. So that's basically a guy who's hitting 270 with 30 homers and playing shortstop. Last year, he led all shortstops and more. I know it's a shortened season, but that's still very impressive. And this year, since mid-May, he's been like an MVP candidate. So this is a guy this is not just a hot streak. Like, this is who Dansby is. We're talking about, is that who Austin Riley is? This is who Dansby is. This is a real good shortstop and one of the best players at his position. And he's going to get paid like that, whether the Braves want to do it or not.
Yeah, I agree. I think locking Dansby up, because, somebody that Braves fans have talked about for a while is Trevor Story. And that's just such a lateral move at this point. I don't
even think it's a lateral. I think that's a significant downgrade. With
the way Story's playing this year, yeah. But he's older. Yeah, I would probably call it a downgrade too. But at this point in his career, it just makes no sense. You would be going and getting the same guy that's older and more expensive that hasn't been in the system for as long.
And I just think this is where Dansby's going. He's ascending. I mean, he's getting better every year. I think that's a lot of work ethic. I think he does it, on the field, in the cages. I also think it's a lot of film work. I think this is who you want on your team. These are the type of guys championship teams are built around. He's been that way since he was in college, and he's gotten better because, he's putting in the work. It's a lot of things. He's obviously super talented, but he's putting in the work, and he's ascending. And then also you have to throw in Trevor Story. He's played at Coors Field. I just think Dansby Swanson has a chance to be an all-star caliber shortstop for the next 6 to 8 years in his career. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. I think this is who he is. I think he's proven it enough. He's just had some unfortunate injuries and maybe a cold start to this season, and now people think it's like inconsistent. No, this is who he is. He is a great shortstop, and I've been ready to lock him up. But if they don't lock him up, it's right up there. You got to lock up Freddie, but then I need Dansby too. I want them both locked up for the foreseeable future. So hopefully the Braves can get them done. Another guy I would like to see locked up, Adam Duvall. I think if Marcell Ozuna is like out, I don't know how you don't bring Duvall back. He's not going to cost that much. The guy has 40 home runs in his last 160 games. Like that, you can have that.
I don't care if Ozuna is back. I still want Duvall. Like we've seen what happens with injuries. We've seen this movie before. Like we're still talking about the 2022 CBA meetings. Like there's still a DH on.
With a DH, and I think that's going to happen. I think this is the last year without a DH. I would bet on that. So yeah, exactly. Especially with the
Max
DH,
Freight's going to win the last Silver Slugger for a pitcher ever,
which is awesome. He's just lucky it wasn't playing all season. I mean, how about that guy? Not only does he come his first plate appearance in 3 months, so he hasn't hit in 3 months. 100 miles off the bat, ground ball, and then he gets a base hit in his second at bat. The guy is just a baller. I mean, is becoming one of my favorite players. So I mean, fantastic performance by him, and he's just one of the many Braves that has just been on a roll. It seems like nothing can go wrong with the Braves right now. So it's a really good feeling down here.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyways, back to Adam Duvall. I know it's a mutual option. He's probably going to try to get a little more money, and I don't have a problem with that. You were paying Ender Inciarte $9 million last year, and that money is gone. So I just see no harm in giving Adam Duvall a little bit of a raise for that, and then having him take over that role and probably playing every day as a DH. That's just the easiest move of the offseason to me. We said bringing O'Day back was the easiest move of the offseason last year, but I thought Duvall, especially with arbitration. I'm not sure if it was arbitration or if they had an option or whatever.
Yeah, it was arbitration. It was
he was non-tendered. Yeah,
it was like $4.5 million or something. He was expected to get.
And now you had to give up Alex Jackson to get him, which I don't think it's going to hurt the Braves too bad. But you could have avoided this problem, and he killed us all year. He probably cost us a couple games against the Marlins. We'd probably have 3 or 4 more wins.
And you could probably, even if you don't think Alex Jackson's good, there are a lot of teams out there that think he's pretty valuable. I mean, obviously we got Duvall for him. We probably could have gotten another piece for Alex Jackson So it was obviously a mistake, and I agree, especially with the DH likely to come. I think Duvall coming back is a no-brainer, and especially with Marcell Ozuna. I think you bring Duvall and Jock Peterson back. I don't know about Rosario. We haven't seen that guy play anymore. He'll probably be back in a couple weeks, but I definitely think both those guys, or Soler maybe. I mean, he obviously has a ton of power. I definitely think you have to bring 2 of those guys back, and Duvall's a no-brainer because the guy's proven he's
outfielders.
He's a 40 home run guy now. Like this is no joke. But yeah, let's drop our shirt plug now. Are we going with what we talked about before?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're giving away the jersey next episode. We're going to announce the winner on the show, so you have to listen to actually get it. That's why we don't announce it on Twitter. So if you've gotten this far into the episode, DM the main account, the main Sports Talk ATL account, with which Braves player you think is the most handsome, and we'll give you 3. This is serious.
I want to know that. This is a poll for me because, like, I was telling him before the episode, and I was just saying I think we have a pretty attractive team. Like just up and down the lineup, I think we could go pound for pound with any other team in the majors.
Yeah.
So I want to know who is.
But if you do DM us, just say the name or
say the name of the player. I'm going to take it as like a poll. I want to see the most responses.
And you'll get 3 entries instead of 1. And I'll go ahead and tell you right now, if you get 3 entries instead of 1, you're probably going to win. Or you and everybody.
There's not that many entries. There's not that many entries, guys. So yeah, definitely do that. I'm using this as like a study. I don't really know.
I just want to pick somebody who actually listens to the damn show. So.
Oh yeah, but I'm using it as a study on who the most attractive Blaze player is, which are the more important things.
We got a little sidetracked there, but
anyways, we'll definitely let you know, and I'll let you know the winner on the next episode of who the most attractive Braves is. So. Other than that, Ian Anderson makes his 3rd rehab appearance on the farm last night with Teoscar Ynoa. He tosses 4.1 shutout innings, 76 pitches, 6 strikeouts. I think if they follow the same path with Ynoa, Anderson will be back next week. I'm sure Bowman and O'Brien will tell us that this week, whether or not he'll make another start in Gwinnett. But I imagine that he will be back in Atlanta next week, making a start. So, which brings me to the question of who gets bumped from the rotation. I actually just wrote something about this, and it comes down to Smiley, Toussaint, or Ynoa. But I also think you could roll with a 6-man rotation, especially if we get like a bigger lead. So, what are your thoughts on those 3 guys? Really, yeah, I mean Anderson's in there. So, what are your thoughts on those 3 guys and who you would move to the rotation? Just how you would approach it if you're the Braves. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, so I'll give like different answers for like a couple different scenarios. So first, I'll answer the question like I think they should give him one more start in Gwinnett just because the way things are rolling, you don't really need him right this second, and you got Baltimore coming up, and then I'm not sure who after that.
I think we got a tough little stretch after that. It might. Oh yeah, I think it's Dodgers, Giants, Yankees.
That's that Dodgers, Giants. Okay, but still. I think right now you can just keep it rolling and have him maybe take one more start in Gwinnett. I'm fine with that. That's not a big deal to me. But to answer the question, actually, I would say it's probably Ynoa just because, he did miss some time and he has that 2-pitch mix. He's got the hard fastball, the sweeping slider, and that's a little more favorable for a bullpen. And obviously, like he just hasn't pitched in a while. But really, I'd prefer to go to a 6-man rotation. I think it's going to keep everybody fresh. Hopefully there's not a rest versus rust problem there, but I think, there's not a massive difference with one day. I don't know. I'm not a professional pitcher, but I'm totally okay with 6-man. Who you would use in that 6-man? I would probably say, I guess you would go Tukey, Smiley, Anderson, and then
I think if you're talking about someone that might get his like spot skipped every once in a while, I definitely think that has to be Smiley. Here's my thing. Smiley's been great, 6-0 with a 3.34 ERA in his last 12 starts. The Braves are 11-1 in those games. He just can't make it out of the 5th inning, so I almost don't even consider him. I mean, I guess he's a starter, but it's almost like he's more of an opener. He's good to give you 4 innings, and then once he gets in a little bit of trouble, to take him out. My thing with Toussaint and Ynoa, I think you got to keep pitching those guys every 5 days, and because they just have so much upside that if they keep rolling, you can't take them out of the rotation yet. So right now, I think they go to that 6-man rotation out of the gate whenever Anderson does come up. I think they might do what you do or said too, keep Anderson down for another start because no reason to rush him up.
I'll tell you what cannot happen. The Tukey or it cannot go down while Josh Tomlin is still on the roster.
No, that's not happening.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm saying right now it better not.
I don't even think you can justify taking Ynoa after he pitched how well he pitched last night and Toussaint out of the rotation right now. I just don't think you can justify it. They've just been too good. Their upside's too high. They could be, this year's Max Fried from a few years ago or Mike Soroka. Like they could have that, or Ian Anderson from last year. They can have that kind of impact on this postseason. So I think you have to see what you got there. Now, if Toussaint starts struggling, maybe you move him to the pen. Maybe you call him. Maybe you even send him to Gwinnett and say, great year. I agree. You can't have Tomlin over a guy like Toussaint, but it depends how hard he struggles. I don't think there's any way he gets sent down. So if he starts struggling, he's going to be a pen guy. I think that's obvious. That's kind of what he was used that way in last year's playoffs. So it wouldn't be surprised, but I think a 6-man rotation, taking things, kind of playing a touch and feel approach is what we're going to see. But I don't think there's any way in hell the Braves can justify sending Toussaint or to the bullpen yet until they start to struggle because they've just been too damn good.
Yeah, we've been talking about Drew Smiley too, and Drew Smiley has been really good until he hits the 3rd time in the order. So that's pretty much perfect for one of those long relief type roles. Like if somebody gets shelled early on and you need somebody to come in and gobble up a couple innings and give you some, give you a fighting chance. Like I think he's better suited for that than somebody like Tukey or somebody like that's probably a little more volatile.
Which, depending on how this pennant straight goes, if it's like a super close one and every game turns into a playoff game, or getting into the playoffs, like that's such a valuable role. Like that's a role that every team has to have. Josh Tomlin has filled that pretty well over the last couple of years, but Drew Smiley's such an upgrade if you were able to use him in that role, and especially if you get into the postseason. I mean, that's kind of what Max Fried was his first full season. He turned into like a guy. The
Cardinals we went to, he was the long.
He pitched and I think the Dodgers the year before, even then, he pitched every game. I think all 4 of them. Yep. So that's such an important role to have, and I think Smiley could fill that much better than probably or Toussaint. But we'll see. I think it's definitely a situation that's going to play itself out over the next weeks. And I think we could see a 6-man rotation until somebody kind of falters, or hope, God forbid, there's no injuries. But it's just a great problem to have. This rotation, you got to give, I say this a lot, but you got to give Anthopoulos some credit. We questioned a lot of these, moves about getting these starting pitchers. But, I mean, Morton's been unbelievable. Smiley's turned it around. And now you have so much pitching depth, and you can tell how this has benefited us during this run.
Yeah, and like I said, I from the well, I said it yesterday, but
you did.
Like people really just got to understand the concept of just like being objective. Like they're always like, I thought you hated Anthopoulos. I thought you liked Anthopoulos. I'm like, no. When he does something that I like, I say, oh, I like that. And when he does something I don't like, I say, oh, I don't like that. Like it's just called having an opinion. It's I don't have to just hate or love the guy. Under all circumstances. I mean, we do the same thing with Brian Snicker. Like. I said something nice about him the other night, and that's pretty big for me. So
yeah, and I mean, I think we remember last season we talked about how he coached circles around who's the Reds manager?
The Reds.
David Bell. I mean, coached circles around him in that 3-game series, and that was critical to us winning without having to completely sweat it out into a third game. Really coached circles around him. And I thought he did a bad job in the NLCS against Dave Roberts. Hopefully he learns from it. But yeah, you have to look at these things by a case-by-case situation. I think there's been several things Anthopoulos has done incorrect, but when you look at this rotation and you look at the acquisitions at the trade deadline for what we had to give away, I think you can be pretty happy with how that all has turned out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so let's get into here. Last thing I want to talk about on the rotation, Mueller was sent down last week. I think we likely saw the last of him. Great job, Kyle. He's been on he was on the old podcast, so awesome.
That was back when he was probably like 19 or so. That was
it's crazy. That was like
probably like 19 too. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, and then Tucker Davidson, also the other guy that I was about to say. We'll see how he returns from his forearm injury if he does return this year. But I can't see him making rehab starts down in Gwinnett and then getting any more looks other than like maybe a last series start if the season is wrapped up.
When the roster expands to 28, it might be like him and Pache but that's actually kind of getting close. It's about 2 weeks, but
yeah. But we'll see. But I don't think Davidson will be ready by then. We could see Mueller. I do think we might see Mueller in that situation. Maybe they try to use Mueller out of the pen as kind of that long relief guy. I definitely think there's going to be a lot of competition, I think, for these playoff roster spots because of all the depth, particularly pitching wise, that the Braves have. So that's something else to just really watch for over these last 6 weeks. Even if the Braves pull away or let's say the Braves pull away, that's definitely something worth watching because the competition doesn't stop. And these guys are going to be fighting for roster spots on that 20. It's going to be 25 or it's 26-man full-time now. That 26-man roster in the playoffs. So definitely something to watch. Hopefully we get to see Tucker again. Hopefully we get to see Kyle again. But I have to imagine for the most part, they probably wrapped up that year and they were both fantastic. Another reason to be really excited about this staff in the future.
Yeah, definitely. But, they'll still get some reps in. We talk about Kyle Mueller, as you like to call him, effectively wild. He was a guy, I'm not a big fan of these pitching prospects going up and down, but he's a guy you can take a look at him and say, okay, he still needs a little more time to develop. And, we're going to send him down for the rest of the year and he's going to stay down there. And we're going to teach him, work on his command, stuff like that. I'm okay with that. Just don't yank him up the next week for another start in the majors and then send him back down if he doesn't play well, which isn't going to happen. But I'm fine with him being sent back down. Yeah,
I always hated how they did that, and I think that's why I was actually happy Bryce Wilson got a chance. I don't know how well he's done in his first few starts with the Pirates. I'm going to do an article that coming up, but I'm happy he got a place where he could pitch every 5 days because he's at that point in his career where you need to kind of find out really what he's made of. And I think he's going to, really figure it out over the years. And I hope he does.
Yeah, he was a bit older than the rest of that draft. I think that may have been 2016 because he's like 25.
He was young.
26.
No.
He was one of the younger ones?
Wilson's 23. Yeah. He made his debut at 19 or like 20, just turned 20 when he actually played against the Pirates. That was his first start like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, he made that debut. He made that debut at like 20. He was up there fast. So I believe a lot in Bryce Wilson. It kind of sucks that we left, but we just have so many arms. I mean,
he never came on the podcast. That's why he got traded. So
yeah, and maybe that's why Kyle Wright has been sucking all year. Just didn't answer our DMs.
Hey, Tucker, Kyle Mueller on the way up. It's the Sports Talk
Bryce
ATL
Ball is probably
pick.
going to be starting in Chicago at first base.
Exactly. Casey Kalick, next closer of the Kansas City Royals.
hey, people want them. You know, their stock is on the rise. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So last segment before we get into it is going to be our mailbag from you guys. We had some interesting ones. I think we should start asking these at better times because I think we ask when people are pissed off and we get these ridiculous questions. And then we give in by answering them here on the show. But I kind of think they're funny. Do I hate Will Smith more than I hate Kevin Smith or Kevon Smith? That's up to you, buddy. I don't know. That almost sounds like a therapist question.
I'm going to go ahead and say no because actually, I don't know because Kevon's not on the team anymore. So, but Will Smith, he's also, like I said, Will Smith, he's overhated. He's had a couple bad games recently, but he was good last night.
I mean, two of his 4 blown saves have been in the last 6 games. So we kind of tend to overreact.
Kevin Smith's going to be a joke among Braves fans. Like we're going to be like 15 years. Like it's going to be like.
I think Twitter allows that too. Like because you have this fan base of everyone just crapping on him. Like he'll never be forgotten. Like if there was, I don't know, like there wasn't Twitter when like Brooks Conrad was around and like stuff like that. Like that was before.
He was probably just starting because he was.
It just wasn't like as popular, you know. Like now you can get these trends on Twitter. Like I'm never gonna forget that. Like I'm never gonna forget.
I'm gonna tweet the Steve Cohen thing every day about the guys in the clubhouse. Hang on, let me find it.
I'm also never gonna forget like Ender Inciarte, just like the amount of hate that guy got. Like as a Brave, like and that's why when we post an Ender Inciarte article and it gets like 40,000 views and it's like he just is low key one of the most popular Braves because of all the hate that he's gotten, you know.
I just visited the players in the clubhouse. They are ready and in a good frame of mind for this game. I'm going to tweet that every day until the season's over.
At first, I thought all of Cohen's it was like all an act. But then he tweets that shit like, you know, crapping on the players. And I'm like, dude, that's not it, my dude. I could see both of us having, you know, a few too many vodka Red Bulls at a game and watching our team lose and just being like, oh,
that was at like 9:15 this morning.
Oh, really? Well, maybe he just had like an intense bender. His team lost like 10 in a row. He's like, I'm just gonna go get absolutely mashed up in Vegas. And you know, it's 9 a.m. He's off.
He comes out of the casino, the sun's out. He's like, I'm getting this tweet off anyway.
He's on his 47th vodka Red Bull, trying to figure out where his hotel is. And he tweets out. Yeah, and he tweets. That's the only thing I can imagine.
Just stop tweeting this week because I don't think we came up with one.
Yeah, that is our just stop tweeting of this week. Steve Cohen, you definitely should just stop tweeting. But man, I've been there, and I couldn't imagine if I owned like spent $2 billion on a team, and they were just choking. Like we get this mad, you know, like with Kevon Smith, like when we have nothing invested other than our fanship. This guy dropped $2 billion, and his team just shit the bed. So
he just gave Francisco Lindor like 13 years and $400 million.
And he's played like 50 games and he's hitting 210. He has like 0.5 WAR. Yeah. But that's on you though, Steve. And your general manager. Maybe you should fire both of those guys and stop blaming the players.
Well, he had to fire one general manager if you forgot.
Oh yeah, already. What was that? What did he do? He was sending unsolicited dick pics. Was that it? Yeah. Or some just like weird or no, that was the coach. That was Mickey Callaway.
No, it was Mickey Callaway. No. That was you're thinking it when he went to the Giants or something. It was the GM because his name was I don't remember.
But didn't they both do it? Like, didn't Mickey Callaway do it under the GM or like he was like?
I'm gonna say
it was
a whole so we don't get sued. But I think it was Mickey Callaway. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think
somebody with the Giants, and I think Mickey Callaway was with the Giants.
Yeah, that was not a good look. But dude, that's the Mets organization as a whole. What am I gonna say? Mets gonna Mets. Like we started this episode out with it. Mets are gonna Mets. This is what they do. It's just a dumpster fire over there.
Yep.
So as much as we might hate Will Smith or Kevon Smith, at least we're not the Mets. To the next question.
To the question, yeah.
To the next question we have: would you rather have Kevon Smith pinch hit with 2 outs in the ninth of a Game 7 World Series game, or would you rather have Tommy Milone start Game 7 of a World Series game? I'll let you answer this. I know my answer.
I gotta take Kevin Smith because Tommy Milone got 29 runs of support in a game and went 2 innings and gave up 8 runs. Like that is wild. I can't have Tommy Milone. I wouldn't have Tommy Malone start my beer league softball league.
Yeah. So let's just say we're playing the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's the game. Let's say it's Game 7 of the NLCS. That lineup is who you have to play.
It would probably be better if I pitched. Like I would at least throw it so slow, like they would be thrown off by it.
I mean, there is a way less than a 10% chance you win that game with him starting. There's way less than a 10% chance. Kevin Smith has maybe barely more than a 10% chance of getting a hit.
He had like a 160 batting average, so technically,
yeah. And we're talking about a tie game, so we just go to extras.
Yeah,
we just go to extras. So I think Kevin Smith definitely. You probably have like a 20% chance of winning that game with him up 2 outs in the ninth in a tie game. You do not have a 20%
tie
game
with Tommy Milone.
No, you do not have a chance. I mean, the Braves would literally have to score 10 runs. You'd have to basically pencil us in for double digits against the Dodgers starting staff.
And the bullpen would have to not give up a single run for like 7 innings.
Yeah, I mean, and because we can't just cheat and be like, oh, we're taking Tommy Milone after 1. Like, no, we have to play the game fair. Like, Tommy Milone needs to make it through at least 3 innings before we can pull him. I kind of like these hypotheticals, but we're done with the hypotheticals. We got a few serious questions. We briefly talked about this, moving Ozzy down in the lineup. Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't really think we have a real leadoff hitter. We just don't. We don't have a guy who just gets on base. Pretty much all of our guys rake and hit bombs. So Ozzy kind of makes the most sense at leadoff to me. And if you weren't gonna move him there, like who would you put there? Jock? That's about the only other guy I can imagine.
Jock was hitting well at leadoff, but it was a really small sample size. And Ozzy was hitting poorly at leadoff, but it was a small sample size. And Ozzy's been playing really well, and the team's been playing really well. So maybe Eddie Rosario, when he gets back, if you want to try to get a little freaky and try that up, maybe. I don't know. But if Ozzy's still hitting like he's hitting, I'm not moving him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're winning way too much now. Maybe that's something we talk about down the line. But for right now, we just don't really have a better option, and we're winning. Keep the thing is going. The last question we already kind of talked about, but it's, a rotation or bullpen. Like I said, I love, as the idea of, in a bullpen. Throws 100, wipeout slider that's around 90. But the guy just keeps impressing me every time he goes out there and pitches. And he's shown it's sustainable. And I think you can't move him out of that starting rotation yet. You got to see what you have for at least, the next month, see how he responds. If he struggles a little bit, now we can start talking bullpen. But for right now, I think there's no doubt about it. He has earned a spot to stay in that rotation and compete for one of the playoff rotation spots.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things to where I'm not saying this is some sort of safe lead that the Braves have, but you have a little cushion to, I don't really want to say experiment maybe, but you have a little bit of room to kind of, there's margin for error. How about that? That sounds a little bit better. There's a little margin for error. Even with the Phillies playing a pretty soft schedule, they lost to the Diamondbacks last night. If you could put a couple more games in between you and Philly, that's probably when you can kind of start, all right, let's see how this goes. But for now, I'm just sticking with what's working and not veering away from it for any reason.
Yep, and like I said earlier, it's going to be a touch and go with that rotation, and we have a little bit of time to experiment and see what's going on. If this race gets a little bit tighter over the last month, I'm sure it'll go down to the 5 best pitchers. But until then, let's see what we got in both Ynoa and Toussaint and see if one of those guys can make an impact in the playoffs, hopefully, as we make it. Final thoughts?
Oh, Chase. I have some breaking news. Max Kellerman expected to be removed from ESPN's First Take.
No way, really?
Probably for being a dumbass, I guess.
I definitely can't stand Max Kellerman.
I don't watch First Take. I don't watch.
Yeah, that show's going to. I mean, it's crazy because that was like everybody's show. I mean, growing up at 10 o'clock, during the summers, you wake up right at 10 o'clock. You're like, hell yeah, like Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless yelling nonsense at them, and it was just entertaining. Whether these people were right or not, it was at least entertaining. Who do you think they'll replace him with?
I don't know. I have a theory, though. I have a theory about First Take. I think First Take is part of the reason why sports fans on Twitter are so stupid. They are so opinionated and just so misinformed. And I think it's because they spent so much time watching First Take, and that's all they do on that show.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons for this. But
that's probably true as well.
But I I think most of these national media guys, it's crazy because I know they spend a ton of times preparing for these podcasts that are and these shows that are 2 and 3 hours long, which is how I don't understand how they say some things that are so stupid. Like, I know
Did you hear Stephen A? He called the Michael P. rhyme like Lima Chal Perrine yesterday or something.
Like, how do you look so stupid when you have producers working around the clock making sure that your stats and everything are there? They probably have the enunciations of all of the names.
Yeah,
they are the most set people ever, and they're supposed to, obviously spend hours and hours, which we don't know. I'm sure they do, but they're supposed to spend hours prepping. So I don't know how they mess up on some of these things, but they do. And maybe that's why Kellerman's out the door. I think it's probably more, he's just kind of annoying. He comes off as like a little too smug for me.
He's definitely, he definitely thinks he's like the smartest guy in every room. And
he's definitely not a bro. Like,
so shout out to him, because I'm pretty sure like his first week of First Take was when he said Tom Brady was going to be a bum in like a year and a half, and that was like 2017.
Yeah, I mean, at least yeah, I mean, that sucks. You look like an idiot after that. I mean, there's nothing to say, but I at least understood the take. I kind of understood what he was trying to say
too, but
Tom Brady just happened to be an alien.
Yeah. All right. We've really gone off track here, but
yeah, but that's fine. I mean, the people want to know what we think about Max Kellerman, and the thing is, he's kind of
anti Max Kellerman podcast.
Well, I don't hate him. I don't know him as a person, but I just don't think I would appreciate having a beer with him. Let's put it that way.
He would definitely like try to tell you, like he would try to debate you, and like I don't want to be debated while I'm having.
Yeah, it's like, bro, the only debate you should be asking me is, do you want to take a shot with this beer? That's the only debate. That's the only debate I want to have.
It's not a debate. The answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes, but I could at least have the debate with him if he's trying to say no. He's like, no, I need to drive. Dude, Ubers are like $10. Come on. Like, that's the debate I want to be having at the bar, not some ridiculous thing. But that does wrap up our second episode of Bloopers Brigade. I really appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week. We'll be giving away that Braves jersey of your choice. Remember to DM us your best-looking Braves player. That's really important experiment for me. And appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week.